5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, our Too Good for Drugs speaker today, very familiar to all of us, Mrs. Williams is here to share with us. Let's give it up. Awesome. So, without further ado, it's all yours.
All right, you all ready to talk about today emotions? Yes, emotions. All right, so today we are going to be talking about how to manage our emotions, and I want to talk really quick about why that's important. So you guys are all in something called Too Good for Drugs. Last week, Dr. Matt came and spoke with you, or I guess that was 2 weeks ago, because last week we were in Disney. Where's bus number 5? Yeah, bus number 5. All right. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, Dr. Mack was here, and he talked about making decisions, right? Do you guys remember when Dr. Mack was here? So what do these things have to do with drugs? So you're in something called Too Good for Drugs. We want you to not obviously do drugs. So what does emotions and decision-making have to do with drugs? Thank you. I'm not going to don't raise your hand. Just think about it in your head. But really, if we are able to take control of our emotions, not let them lead us, but be in control of them, and if we're able to really think about decisions before we make them, before we act, then it's gonna help us make wise decisions when it comes to a lot of things, including not giving into peer pressure and doing drugs. So that's kind of the relation, so I just wanna make sure to start with that. So the first thing I wanna do is tell you a little bit about myself. So there's a picture that he's gonna put on the screen. This is my family. So most of you know I have a daughter in middle school. Her name is Emily. She's in 7th grade. But I also have 2 older boys, Jacob, who's on the right in the FGCU sweater, who was so nice to come to support me today. He's actually sitting right over there. That's Jacob. All right, Jacob. He is a freshman in college, so he's in his first year of college. So he's having to deal with all new emotions because it's all new to him. So it never ends. As you go through life and you're going through different things, emotions are always going to be part of it. And then I have Noah. Do any of you know Noah from here? Anyone? You've seen him before. He's a junior here. He's super involved in track, which is happening right now. He's doing hurdles. So that is Noah. He's a junior. Then it's Emily. My husband, Chris, he and I have been married for 21 years. So I just wanted to give you a little background on me. That's my family. Get to know me a little bit better. And now we're going to talk about emotions. So emotions are, what's another word? Just say it out loud. Does anybody know another word for emotions? Feelings, yeah. So you can use those words interchangeably. So we're going to talk emotions today, but you can also think about your feelings. And sometimes when we don't know how to manage our emotions well, they can overwhelm us, right? They can make us feel flooded, and then it's hard for us to go back and make decisions like Dr. Mack talked about when we're flooded with those emotions. So let's review really quick with what Dr. Mack talked about. Does anybody remember the first step in decision making? Stop. That's right. That's good. So stop is the very first step. And honestly, in managing emotions, stopping is a really good first step anyways, because you want to take a second before you act, before you do anything, before you respond to what you're feeling, and you want to stop. So that was the first step. What was the second step? Think. Right. So we want to think, what is the positive outcome I want? What are the options I have? You want to weigh them out. Okay, if I go this way, what's the consequence? If I go this way, what's the consequence? So you're thinking about the different options you have, and then you want to think about what's influencing me. Am I going to make this decision and go in this direction because I want to be cool, because I want my friends to like me, because I want to honor God? So you're thinking about what's influencing you and what's going to make you make a decision, right? So stop, think. What was the third? Act. So you're going to think about it, and then you're gonna go, okay, I've weighed my options. This is the direction I think I should go in. You're gonna act, you're gonna make the decision, you're gonna take the action, and then you're finally going to reflect. Okay, so you did whatever you did, and now you're dealing with whatever the good or bad consequence of that is. So now you're gonna think, was that the right decision? Would I make a different decision next time, right? So those are the steps that Dr. Mack talked about. So it sounds like you guys are awesome. You really remember that. So now we're gonna take that and then talk about how emotions play into that in the decision making. So emotions are a part of who we are, nothing bad about emotions. But when you think about emotions and what you feel, do you think that you would want them to be in the driver's seat, driving everything you do, or in the passenger seat so that they're a part of your decisions, but not necessarily the thing that's causing you to make the decision? What do you think? Passenger seat. So emotions are a part of who we are. We need to take them into consideration, but we don't want them to be the driving force in what we do, right? So have you guys ever heard of an IQ? Okay, so IQ stands for intelligence quotient. So it's talking about your intelligence and maybe how you compare in that area to your peers. Have you guys ever heard of an EQ? EQ. Okay, so that's a little less known term. EQ stands for emotional intelligence. So here's a question for you. So emotional intelligence would be like managing your emotions. If you have an obstacle, being able to overcome the obstacle and not give up. Those are all part of emotional intelligence. So in life, for success, what do you think would be more successful for people? I'm gonna be more successful if I have a higher IQ, intelligence, or EQ, emotional intelligence. Both are important. Okay, some are saying IQ, some are saying EQ. And research shows that your EQ, being able to manage your emotions and being resilient, being able to overcome when hard things come our way, those are actually better indicators for success in life than your intelligence. So that's just something for you guys to remember. That's why it's so important for you to be learning about emotions and how to manage your emotions well. So today, we're gonna practice recognizing our emotions and being able to identify words to do that. And then we're gonna talk about how we can control our emotions. So what are the basic emotions? Do you guys remember a little movie from a few years ago called Inside Out? All right. Let's watch a video to remember what the basic emotions are.
Joy. This is sadness. That's anger. What? This is disgust. And that's fear. We're Riley's emotions.
reminder about some of the basic emotions we feel. So there's happiness, sadness, fear, anxiety. Oh, I guess anxiety and fear go together. Which one am I missing? Sadness, thank you. And then they said disgust. Disgust is one that they throw in there that's not usually talked about as a primary emotion. So when they're talking about emotions, sometimes they add in a few or take out one, but those are the primary emotions. So one thing that's super important about talking about emotions is having a really good vocabulary to talk about emotions. So you can say, I'm scared, or you can say, I'm terrified. And those have different meanings because we have different words to describe fear, right? So look at page 6 in your workbooks. So this is an activity. I'm just going to do the first one with you, and then you can do the rest on your own. So on the next slide, it says, glad is to happy. So is glad a little happy or a lot happy? A little. So glad means a little happy. So then you're looking for a word, since glad is a little happy, you're looking for a word that means a little sad. So look at your word bank and tell me, which word do you think means a little sad? Blue. So you would write blue in the line, and you would go through and do the same thing using the word bank so that you understand how to describe a variety of emotions and different levels of emotions. So that's one thing you can do to learn different words to describe your feelings. The next slide shows something called a feelings wheel. Have you guys ever seen this before? You've seen something like it? So a feelings wheel is gonna also give you greater vocabulary with your emotions. So in the middle, you could say, I feel happy, but then I might ask you, well, are you feeling more confident or joyful? And then you would be able to use the word to be more specific about how you're feeling. So I have lots of these. If you guys ever want to borrow a feelings wheel, have a feelings wheel, come to my office, take one with you. But this is a great way when you go home and you're talking to your parents and you're talking about your day and they're like, oh, did you have a good day? And you say, yeah, it was pretty good. I had a happy day, whatever. Then you can use this to maybe be more descriptive with the people you're talking to about how you're feeling. That's called a feelings wheel. All right, so one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is warning lights. So we have different things in our body that happen when we're feeling different things. So for some people, if you have if you guys ever had it where your hands kind of get clammy, you ever have that? No? Okay, how about a racing heart? You guys ever experienced that? Okay, so what emotion might you be feeling if your heart starts to go fast? Fear. Okay, is there happiness? Anger. So there's a lot of different emotions that heart racing can warn us is happening, right? And everybody's a little bit different in what they experience in their bodies that's telling them what emotions they're feeling. It's no right or wrong answer. Everybody's different. So what I want to talk about is these warning signs. So we're going to watch a quick video that's going to talk about the brain, how it works with our emotions, and then we're going to go through some of the warning signs and see how you guys feel, what emotion you think you're feeling when you have that warning sign. Okay, so short video on the brain.
When we hear the word emotion, most of us think of love, hate, happiness, or fear. Those strong feelings we experience throughout life. Our emotions are the driving force behind many of our behaviors, helpful and unhelpful. Just where do our emotions come from? Our brain is wired to look for threats or rewards. If one is detected, the feeling region of the brain alerts us through the release of chemical messages. Emotions are the effect of these chemical messages traveling from our brain through the body. When our brain detects a potential threat, our brain releases the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare us for a fight or flight response. When we detect or experience something rewarding, such as someone doing something nice for you, our brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, or serotonin. These are the chemicals that make us feel good and motivate us to continue on the task or behavior. In these instances, the feeling region of the brain kicks in before the thinking part. Sometimes the reactions of the feeling brain are so strong that it dominates our behaviors and we're unable to think rationally in the moment. Our emotions hijack our brain. While many of our emotional responses happen subconsciously, our thinking can influence our emotions, and sometimes this can be unhelpful. Just thinking about something threatening can trigger an emotional response. This is where we can manage our emotions with conscious thinking. Our emotions play a powerful role in the way we experience the world. Understanding and regulating our emotions through our thoughts and behaviors can help us take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.
All right. Yay. Okay. All right, so warning signs, your brain gets flooded with emotions, and then your body starts to respond to that by doing different things. So what we're gonna do as an activity, we're gonna put something that your body might do, like a racing heart, up on the screen, and then we're gonna go through the emotions. I just want you to raise your hand if you have that symptom in your body, if you think that might be an emotion that you would feel when you have that symptom going on. Okay, so what's the first one? The first one's racing heart. So how many of you feel that if you have a racing heart, you're experiencing fear? Just raise your hand. Okay, so most people. How about happiness? Racing heart for happiness? Sadness? Okay, fewer, but that's okay. Anger? Yeah, that gets your heart going, right? All right, so what's the next one? Laughing. How many of you have laughter when you're experiencing fear? It happens, right? Sometimes we laugh and it's like kind of like to cover up maybe something else. Happiness with laughter? I love to laugh. It's like one of my most favorite things to do. How about sadness? Anybody laugh when they're sad? Okay. Yeah, but it happens. Everybody's different, right? And some people, when they're sad, it's like a response to being sad. Okay, how about anger? Anybody laugh when they're angry? All right, a lot of you. Okay, what's the next one? Tensing muscles. Ugh. Okay, how many tense your muscles when you're fearful? Okay, how about happy? You tense your muscles when you're happy? Maybe. When you're sad, anybody get tensed up when they're sad? How about angry? Most hands go up for that one. Yeah, really ready to fight. That was that fight or flight thing that they talked about? Yep, all right. And I think this is the last one. Crying. How many of you cry when you're afraid? That's normal, right? All of this is normal. Everybody's different and there's no right or wrong way. Happy. Any of you cry when you're happy? Yeah, have you ever been watching a movie and it has such a happy ending and it just like brings tears to your eyes? Yeah. Okay, how about sadness? Anybody cry when they're sad? Me too. And angry. Anybody get so angry that they actually cry? Yeah, totally. Everybody's different. These are something for you to get in touch with for yourself so you know if my heart is racing, what am I feeling? If I have tense muscles, what does that mean for me? So it's really important for you guys to be aware of what your body does when it's experiencing different things so that you can learn to control it, learn some strategies that are gonna help you not to give in to whatever you're feeling, but to make a decision with your head, kind of like the video was talking about. So we are gonna talk about a few different emotions that I think tend to be ones that people struggle with more. So the first one I wanna take a few minutes and talk about is anger. Anybody here, besides me, sometimes struggle a little bit with anger and controlling that? Yeah. So do you guys, yes. So does anybody know what that is on the screen? Iceberg. And what do we know about icebergs? There's a little bit on top sticking out above the water, and then there's a whole chunk of ice underneath the surface, right? You guys remember the story of the Titanic, right? They saw the little bit of ice above the water, and they didn't know that there was this huge iceberg underneath. Okay, so that is kind of what anger is like with our emotions. Anger is peeking out at the top, but a lot of times there's a whole slew of things going on underneath the surface that are causing us to respond in anger. So for instance, if we're dealing with something like sadness, sometimes it's easier to just display anger than to really talk about what's going on inside our hearts and the fact that we're sad. Another example of an emotion that I think is underneath the surface for a lot of people, especially middle schoolers, when they're responding in anger, is embarrassment. So I'm gonna talk about a situation. There's some situations you can read in your book, but I'm gonna give you one that I think might even relate more to you in a few minutes. But when you have that embarrassed feeling come over you, instead of being like acknowledging and going, I am embarrassed, what am I gonna do with that emotion? Sometimes it's easier just to respond in anger and with that fighting attitude because we don't wanna say that we're embarrassed because it's almost hard for us to admit, right? So anger is one thing I just wanted to touch on really briefly. The other one I wanna talk on really briefly is something that I personally struggle with sometime, and that's anxiety. Fear, worry. When I get up to speak in front of you all, I get nervous, so I have to have some strategies for myself that allow me to calm down and not be nervous. So it is very normal. The Bible talks a lot about fear. So we know it's a normal emotion for us to have as humans, but we need to figure out what can we do so we don't let it rule us, so that we still do things that are hard for us, and how do we rewire our brains so that it always doesn't go to a place of fear. So did you know that in your brain, as it's working, you're developing pathways that make it easier to go in one direction from one thing to the next? So like, let's say you're scared of public speaking, okay? So every time I get up to public speak, my brain might automatically go to, I'm afraid, I'm not gonna do well, they're not gonna like it. These are the things I could be telling myself in my brain, and the more I tell myself those messages, the more those pathways are gonna get in my brain that it goes easier to those places. So one important thing for you to do, if you're struggling with a fear about something, is that you retell your brain, every time I have that fear, instead of thinking this thought, I'm gonna think this instead. So that might be a scripture. How many of you know what's the Philippians song you guys used to sing? 6 and 7. Okay, so even hearing that melody in your brain, if you start to get afraid, even you're not gonna sing the whole song maybe, but rewiring your brain to think those words of that song when you get nervous. Or it could even be a simple phrase, like I'm going to speak, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up, and instead I'm gonna tell myself, I can do it. So as soon as I start to get nervous, instead of allowing my brain to go in this direction, I'm gonna go, I can do it, it's gonna be fine. So replacing some negative thoughts with some positive thoughts to try to combat that anxiety. So we're gonna talk a little bit about some strategies that you can do, but first, here's my situation. You tell me if this is a situation that you guys have ever seen play out before. And then if we have time, I can read the one in the book. Okay, but the situation that came to mind for me is, you're on the recess field on the turf. You guys there with me? You see everybody playing, right? You guys are playing a game. What's a sport you guys play? Football? Soccer? Okay. Football. We'll go with football. You boys, maybe some girls too, I don't know, you're playing football on the turf. You fall down, you trip, you're laying on the ground, and one of your friends points at you and is like, oh my gosh, what a loser, and everybody starts to laugh. Nobody does that? All right. Mr. Talpesh says, yeah, they do. Okay, so what feeling, you're that person, you're on the ground, everybody's laughing, what's the feeling you think that would be coming over you? Anger. Okay, we just talked about anger. So what do you think? Embarrassment. Anything else? Sadness. So a lot of different emotions coming over us. Can you do me a favor, bud? Can you go sit next to Mr. Talpesh right over there? Thank you so much. All right, so a lot of different emotions can be coming over you when you are in that situation and you are embarrassed, right? So then what do you do with those, flood of emotions? What do? You lock it out? Oh, you laugh it out. I love that. Laughter is definitely something we can do to help control our emotions. Anybody have any other ideas? Walk away. So that kind of goes back to what Dr. Mack was talking about, right? Stop. You're gonna walk away so you don't respond and do something you don't wanna do. Anybody have anything else? Put an end to the game just by saying we're not gonna play anymore? Okay, so you're directing your anger into what you're doing in a positive way. I love that, okay. Yeah? Put something happy in your mind so you think about something positive. So there's one activity, I love that. There's one activity that I like to do, and you can kind of do it anywhere, where you think of your most favorite place ever. So can everybody just close your eyes for a second? Close your eyes. And think about your favorite place to be. Could be somewhere you go on vacation, could be a spot in your house, could be your bedroom, could be somewhere outside you like to be, but think of your favorite place. Now I want you to think about your 5 senses and what do you love about that place? What do you hear when you're at that place? What do you smell when you're at that place? What are you seeing when you're at that place? What do you taste when you're at that place? And is there anything around you that you can feel? Maybe it's grass underneath your hands, maybe it's your couch or your bed, but what are you feeling when you're in that happy place? So that's one activity we can do. If we're getting riled up, it's called mindfulness. You try to think of what's going on around you, and you can put yourself in a much calmer, relaxed state. Counting to 10. So you know how the video was talking about how when we, our brain gets flooded with emotions, and it takes us a minute sometimes for like the thinking part of our brain to catch up with the emotional part of our brain? So counting to 10 may sound simple, but if you sit there and you count to 10, it allows you to calm down and make a decision that's gonna be better for you in the long run than just making it out of an emotional state. Another one that I love is breathing. Do you guys ever do breathing? Some of you. So breathing lowers your heart rate, calms you down, brings oxygen to your brain. So we're gonna do another activity right now called box breathing. Have you guys ever done box breathing? I think I did it with you guys maybe the first day of school. Okay, so be patient with me, here we go. We're gonna make a box with our finger, so I want you to guys go, just make a box with your finger. Do it again. All right, so what we're gonna do is we are going to breathe up the side of our box, across the top, we're gonna hold our breath, we're gonna exhale down the bottom of the box, and then hold and pause down the bottom, okay? So I'm gonna count, so I won't be breathing, but I want you to just follow the breath pattern. So we're gonna go, you're gonna start with breathing in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now pause for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it one more time. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're gonna pause for 4. So if you do that 7 times in a row, if you're getting upset, if your emotions are taking over, if you do that breathing exercise 7 to 10 times, it's gonna calm you down, allow you to think more clearly, weigh the options like Dr. Mack talked about, and make a wise decision. So I'm trying to think if there's any other strategies I missed. Somebody said laugh, that was written down for me. Breathing, thinking of your happy place and making sure that you can go there in your mind. I know this is a tough one, but sharing your feelings with someone is really helpful. So if you go to a family member, a friend, and you say, that really embarrassed me, or that I'm really struggling with sadness, sharing your feelings is a great way to help you regulate your feelings. And finally, there was one more I had written down, and I think you guys will all like this one. Listen to music. Do you guys enjoy music? Yeah, so if you're struggling, especially if you're at home when you can put your earbuds in, if you're struggling with an emotion and you need to calm yourself down, put your earbuds in, put on your favorite tunes. Let me recommend it's something that's pouring life into you, maybe not some of the negative stuff that's out there, but listen to positive music. It's gonna help. So I hope this helps you guys figure out how to recognize your emotions and then a couple strategies to try to manage them so you can bring it back down when you're getting upset. And that is pretty much it for me. You guys know what? You have 2 more classes and then you're on spring break. So that should bring some happy emotions into the room. Yay for spring break. All right, thank you guys. Is this anybody's phone, by the way? You got it?
It's mine. No,
that makes sense. It's the sparkles.
So something I thought we could do with the last couple minutes, if anybody had any questions that they'd like, for Mrs. Williams to answer, I'll gladly come around with the microphone. You'll tell me the question in my ear, and then I will ask the question for Ms. Williams. So does anybody have any questions in regards to emotions? You got something, Alon? All right. What's your question?
Do you think that it's like, you're like doing
Do you think if you were doing those exercises in the middle of a class, you would get in trouble?
So I would say that the 2 that I gave you that we actually practiced in here are great ones to do in a class because they would not affect anybody around you except for yourself. If you're breathing, Make a little square. Instead of doing it in the air, do it on the side of your Chromebook or on your desk, and nobody's gonna notice. You're breathing to calm yourself down, but nobody would say anything. And then the one in the mind, 100%, nobody would know that it's going on. That's why I love those. You can do them anywhere.
How do you identify what kind of emotions you're feeling?
So that's one of the reasons why, if you're struggling with trying to identify what you're feeling, those feeling wheels are really helpful because you can kind of pick which one sounds the most like what you're feeling, and then from there, you can get more specific, and it helps you really identify what you're actually feeling when you're struggling with. But that's totally normal to not be able to figure it out on your own. Those tools are there to help you do that.
When you're angry, what's the first thing you should do?
I would say stop. No response while you're angry. You need to stop, walk away, and then put some of those other things into practice before you do anything. Counting to 10, taking some deep breaths, talking to someone. So first step though, if you're feeling angry, stop.
Do you always have to listen to happy music, or can you listen to more like upbeat music when you're feeling?
I think any kind of music is great if it makes you feel good. I think you need to be aware of how music makes you feel. So my comment about having negative music, I would say that there's some music out there that just has some lyrics that might actually make us more angry. They might make us like kind of feel all tense inside, and I would definitely not recommend anything like that if you're trying to calm down.
Can students come to your office anytime, like particularly during like math class? That's Milan's words, not mine. Basically, when can they come to your office?
My office is always open. Sometimes, just to be honest, I do work in the conference room, but if I'm not in my office, if you come to the middle school office and go see Miss Megna, she'll find me. She can text me, she can call me, but I am always available. You guys are my top priority. So if I'm not in my office, if I am, come in, and if I'm not, go to Miss Megna and she'll help track me down.
So this is a question that I get a lot, and I answer individually a lot, but never really corporately. So how does this involve drugs? If we're doing a program called Too Good for Drugs, why haven't we talked about anything like that yet?
Yeah, I talked about a little bit at the beginning, but basically, if you learn to care for yourself, to make good decisions, to make sure that you're willing to talk about things as you're walking through them, then you're not as likely to choose negative ways to deal with your emotions. So some people use something like drugs or alcohol to deal with something they're feeling inside, and it's not a permanent fix. It might feel better in the moment, but long term, it's only gonna create more problems and more anxiety and more fear, and all of those things are never gonna go away if that's how you're coping with your emotions. So talking about emotions and learning how to deal with them in a positive way is hopefully, prayerfully, gonna allow you to not choose to use other things like drugs to feel good when there's other ways that you can do that aren't bad for you.
Perfect. Yeah, and that was the question. That was another question that I had. Like, why do people use drugs to make them feel happy?
Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm feeling sad and I don't want to deal with the fact that I'm feeling sad or the reason why I'm feeling sad, then I might choose to say, well, I'm going to do this because I'll feel better in the moment. But then the long-term consequences of that can change the course of a person's whole life. So we want to make sure that we're finding healthy ways to deal with whatever's going on in our minds and our hearts.
And this is the last one. So if we're trying to help a friend with their emotions, how do we go about doing that? Because they're probably the same age as our students. So what is some advice that you'd give to help friends, helping friends with their emotions?
Yeah, and it depends what they're dealing with, right? So if it's something you've walked through before and maybe you think you could help them, but sometimes our problems are bigger, and because our friends haven't lived any more life than we've lived, we need to get an adult involved. So it just depends what they're sharing. But I would say a big part of counseling, honestly, is listening. So with your friends, one of the most important things you can do is listen to them, encourage them, and then if it seems to be a problem bigger than something that you feel like you can handle, then you need to ask an adult to help, a teacher, me, anybody in the office, but we are there to help you, guide you guys, we love you, and yeah, so that's that.
Awesome. Ended up with one more. So can regular medications help you with emotions?
Can say it one more time.
Regular medications help you with emotions.
Well, I think that there are times where if your parents get involved, there are medications that can help you with your emotions, but there's a lot of strategies that you could try before going in that direction. A lot of different things that you can try to get involved in your life that can help you to learn how to cope and manage your emotions in a positive way. But if you ever feel like it's beyond that, then a conversation with your parents, and they usually contact me, and then it's something we'll talk about together.
Awesome. Guys, let's give it up for Mrs. Williams. Thank you so much. Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, you did a great job today. We will see you next, not next week, but the week after, next Tuesday. Yeah. See y'all later. Love you guys.